The haunted mirror. The crisp autumn air swirled fallen leaves around the Thompson family's feet as they stood on the sprawling lawn of their new home. Ashton Manor, a majestic Victorian mansion with gables, turrets, and a wraparound porch, seemed to loom over them, both inviting and intimidating. John Thompson, a freelance writer with a penchant for the macabre, couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement mixed with a hint of unease. His wife, Mary, a practical nurse with a calm demeanor, was simply relieved to finally have a place to call their own. After months of searching for a house that met their needs and their limited budget, Ashton Manor had appeared like a miracle. The realtor, a slick-haired man named Mr. Blackwood, no relation to the manor's original owner, he had assured them with a wink, had attributed the surprisingly low price to the owner's eagerness to sell and relocate overseas. The Thompsons, eager to escape their cramped city apartment, hadn't questioned their good fortune too closely. 10-year-old Emily, a bookish girl with a vivid imagination, was enchanted by the manor's Gothic charm. She envisioned secret passages, hidden rooms, and perhaps even a friendly ghost or two. Her younger brother, 8-year-old Ben, was more interested in the vast expanse of the backyard, perfect for his endless games of tag and hide and seek. As they stepped across the threshold, the heavy oak door creaking ominously behind them, the Thompsons had no idea that their new home held secrets far darker and more sinister than they could have ever imagined. The first few weeks in Ashton Manor were a whirlwind of unpacking, decorating, and exploring. John set up his writing desk in a sunny corner of the library, surrounded by towering bookshelves and the comforting scent of old paper. Mary claimed the bright and airy sunroom as her sanctuary, filling it with potted plants and comfortable armchairs. Emily and Ben, with the boundless energy of youth, turned the attic into their own private playground, a realm of dusty trunks, forgotten toys, and endless possibilities. However, as the initial excitement wore off, a sense of unease began to creep into the Thompsons' lives. The house seemed to have a life of its own, with floorboards groaning underfoot, doors opening and closing seemingly at will, and objects disappearing and reappearing in unexpected places. At night, the silence was often broken by strange sounds, the rustling of unseen fabric, the faint clinking of glasses, and whispers that seemed to slither through the hallways like phantom breaths. Emily, with her heightened sensitivity to the unseen, was the first to truly notice these disturbances. She would lie awake at night, listening to the whispers and imagining shadowy figures lurking in the corners of her room. She told her parents about the cold spots she felt in certain areas of the house, and the unsettling feeling of being watched, even when she was alone. John, initially skeptical, began to pay more attention to his daughter's concerns. He, too, started to notice the strange occurrences, and the growing sense of dread that permeated the house. Mary, ever the pragmatist, tried to rationalize the events, attributing them to the old age of the house and the creaky plumbing. But even she couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. One rainy afternoon, while exploring the seemingly endless attic, Emily stumbled upon a hidden door concealed behind a tapestry. Curiosity piqued, she pulled the tapestry aside, revealing a small, dusty room. In the center of the room stood a magnificent antique mirror, its ornate frame carved with intricate designs. Drawn to its enigmatic beauty, Emily stepped closer. As she gazed into the mirror, her reflection seemed to waver and distort, as if the surface of the glass were rippling like water. A shiver ran down her spine, and a feeling of intense coldness enveloped her. She saw fleeting images in the mirror's depths, shadowy figures, flickering lights, and a pair of glowing red eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. Terrified, Emily fled the room, slamming the door shut behind her. She didn't tell her parents about her discovery, fearing that they wouldn't believe her. But she couldn't shake off the feeling that the mirror was more than just an antique. It was a portal to something dark and sinister. Something that was now aware of her presence. From that day forward, Emily's nightmares were plagued by visions of the mirror and the chilling images she had seen within its depths. She felt a constant sense of unease, as if she were being watched, followed, and haunted by an unseen presence. The mirror had awakened something in the house, something malevolent that was slowly seeping into their lives. As Emily's fear intensified, so did the paranormal activity within Ashton Manor. Objects began to move on their own, sometimes with alarming force. Doors slammed shut with deafening bangs. Pictures flew off the walls, and furniture seemed to rearrange itself overnight. The whispers grew louder, morphing into guttural growls and blood-curdling screams that echoed through the hallways. One night, John was awakened by the sound of his name being whispered in his ear. He sat up in bed, heart pounding, and saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure raised its hand, pointing a long, bony finger at John, and then vanished into thin air. Mary, awakened by John's startled cry, tried to comfort him, but she, too, was shaken by the encounter. The haunting was no longer subtle, it was blatant, aggressive, and terrifying. They could no longer ignore the reality that their dream home had become a nightmare. The Thompsons tried to leave, packing their bags and attempting to drive away from Ashton Manor. But each time they tried, they were thwarted by inexplicable events. The car wouldn't start, the roads seemed to lead them in circles, and an overwhelming sense of dread prevented them from venturing too far from the house. It became horrifyingly clear, they were trapped. The realization that they were prisoners in their own home sent a wave of panic through the Thompsons. They were at the mercy of unseen forces, tormented by malevolent spirits that seemed to delight in their fear and despair. The haunting escalated, becoming a relentless assault on their senses and their sanity. One evening, as the family huddled together in the living room, a chilling scene unfolded before their eyes. The antique grandfather clock in the corner began to chime erratically, its pendulum swinging wildly. The temperature in the room plummeted, and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring the furniture and the walls. Suddenly, a spectral figure materialized in the center of the room. A woman in a tattered white gown, her face pale and gaunt, her eyes hollow and filled with an unspeakable sadness. She raised her arms, letting out a mournful wail that sent shivers down their spines. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she vanished, leaving behind a lingering chill and a sense of profound despair. The Thompsons were living in a constant state of terror, jumping at every creak and shadow. They tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for the sake of the children. But the fear was palpable. A heavy weight that pressed down on them all. They knew they had to find a way to break free from the grip of the spirits that held them captive. But how? Desperate for answers, John delved into the history of Ashton Manor. He spent hours in the local library, poring over old newspapers, property records, and historical archives. He discovered that the manor had a long and troubled past, filled with tragedy, mystery, and whispers of dark secrets. The original owner, Elias Blackwood, a wealthy industrialist with a fascination for the occult, had built the manor in the late 19th century. Blackwood was rumored to have conducted séances and rituals within the walls of the house, seeking to contact the spirit world. His obsession with the supernatural had ultimately led to his downfall, as he disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a legacy of whispers and speculation. John's research led him back to the attic, to the hidden room where Emily had found the mirror. He examined the room more closely, noticing strange symbols etched into the walls and floor. He found a hidden compartment behind a loose brick, containing a leather-bound journal. The journal was Blackwood's diary, filled with his ramblings about his occult experiments, his growing madness, and his terrifying encounters with the entities he had summoned. Blackwood's diary revealed the chilling truth about the mirror. It was not merely an antique, it was a cursed object. A gateway to another realm. A realm inhabited by malevolent entities that Blackwood had unwittingly unleashed upon the world. He had believed that he could control these entities, harness their power for his own purposes. But he had been wrong. The entities had turned on him, feeding on his fear and despair, driving him to the brink of insanity. They had trapped him within the mirror, his soul forever bound to the house he had built. The Thompsons now understood the source of the haunting. The mirror was the conduit, the anchor that held the spirits tethered to Ashton Manor. They were not just dealing with the ghosts of the past, they were facing entities from another dimension. Creatures of pure darkness that reveled in their suffering. The diary also contained clues to breaking the curse. Cryptic passages and rituals that Blackwood had discovered in his desperate attempts to undo the damage he had wrought. John realized that their only hope of escape lay in deciphering these clues and confronting the entities on their own terms. Armed with the knowledge gleaned from Blackwood's diary, the Thompsons embarked on a desperate fight for their freedom. They consulted with paranormal experts, seeking guidance and support. They researched ancient rituals and symbols, hoping to find a way to weaken the entities and sever their connection to the mirror. They performed cleansing rituals, filling the house with the smoke of sage and the sound of chanting. They faced their own deepest fears, confronting the spirits in their nightmares and challenging their power. They sought to understand the entities, their motives, and their weaknesses. The house fought back, resisting their every effort. The paranormal activity intensified, as if the spirits sensed the threat to their dominion. Objects flew across rooms with alarming force. Doors slammed shut with bone-jarring violence. And the ghostly apparitions became more frequent and more menacing. But the Thompsons persevered, their determination fueled by their love for each other and their desperate desire to escape the clutches of Ashton Manor. They knew that the final confrontation was inevitable. and they prepared themselves for the ultimate battle against the forces of darkness. Following the instructions in Blackwood's diary, the Thompsons gathered in the attic. In the hidden room where the cursed mirror stood, they arranged candles and symbols on the floor, creating a protective circle around themselves. John, his voice trembling but resolute, began to chant the incantations he had found in the diary, his words echoing through the silent house. The house responded with a fury, shaking violently as if an earthquake were tearing it apart. The ghostly figures materialized around them, their eyes burning with rage and hatred. The woman in white, the shadowy figure with the bony finger, and a host of other grotesque apparitions, their forms shifting and swirling like smoke. The entities attacked, their icy touch chilling the air, their whispers piercing the Thompsons' minds. But the protective circle held, the symbols and the incantations forming a barrier against their malevolence. John continued to chant, his voice growing stronger, his resolve unwavering. Mary and the children, huddled together in the center of the circle, closed their eyes and focused their energy on breaking the curse. They visualized the mirror shattering, the entities being banished back to their realm, and their family escaping from Ashton Manor, free from the grip of the haunting. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light erupted from the mirror, filling the room with an intense heat. The entities screamed in agony, their forms contorting and dissolving as the mirror cracked and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The house groaned and shuddered, as if releasing a centuries-old burden. Then, silence. The ghostly figures were gone. The whispers silenced. The malevolent energy dissipated. The Thompsons, exhausted but triumphant, emerged from the circle, blinking in the sudden stillness. They had done it. They had broken the curse. They packed their belongings, leaving behind the remnants of the shattered mirror and the dark legacy of Elias Blackwood. As they drove away from Ashton Manor, the sun rising on the horizon, they felt a sense of relief and liberation that words could not describe. The scars of their ordeal would remain, but they had faced their fears, fought for their freedom, and emerged victorious. They had learned the true meaning of courage, resilience, and the enduring power of family. And they knew, with absolute certainty, that they would never again take the allure of a too good to be true offer for granted.